Far from the hustle and bustle of the city, inside a deserted hotel, something was about to happen. Something horrifying enough to chill anyone to the bone. Elena was quietly studying in her room when suddenly her phone rang. On the other end was her friend Missy. She was heading to an exclusive party. Elena wasn't in the mood, but Missy had already pulled up outside her house. After a bit of hesitation, Elena finally gave in. The party location, kept secret until the very last moment. When they finally reached crossing a narrow alley, they came face to face with a strange man. Entry was code only. Elena leaned in and whispered, "Nevermore," and the door creaked open. What she saw inside was a whole different world. Blaring music, flashing lights, and people dancing like there was no tomorrow. It felt like stepping into another dimension. But in the middle of all that color and chaos, Elena spotted her boyfriend, way too close to another girl. Her veins lit with rage, and without a second thought, she walked up and punched him, hard, right in front of everyone. Then she stormed out, tears running down her face, searching for a quiet corner to breathe. But no one had a clue that just 20 feet above them, a masked figure stood, prepping a massacre. Meanwhile, Elena had completely slipped away from Missy's sight. After searching around, she stumbled upon a quiet room, and right in the middle was a red box. Before she could make sense of it, strange noises started coming from the box. She gathered her courage and opened it, and in that very moment, everything changed. A hidden trigger snapped, launching an arrow. But just before it hit her, a man burst out of the box and took the hit instead. That arrow wasn't random. It was the start of something deadly. A cable attached to the arrow activated a switch, and that switch turned on a machine. Back in the hall, the crowd was still lost in the music, dancing like nothing was wrong. No one knew the only exit had just been sealed shut. And then, the machine roared to life. In seconds, that metal beast tore through the crowd like cattle feed, shredding anyone in its path. The dance floor turned into a bloodbath. The few who were out in the hallways were still alive, but for how long? Across the building, Arkin had made it out of the red box, but he couldn't escape, his legs shackled in heavy iron cuffs. He lunged toward Elena for help, but terrified, she ran off. In that chaos, her bracelet fell to the floor, the one thing that could have helped free Arkin. But now the hallway wasn't safe either. It was rigged with deadly traps, and a few people had already fallen victim. The killer rounded up the survivors and locked them inside an iron cage. And without wasting a second, he triggered another device. A massive steel platform above the cage started lowering, inch by inch. The trapped victims fought to stop it, but it wouldn't stop. Missy was inside that cage, and Elena, standing outside, could do nothing. Moments later, that platform came crashing down, crushing every single one of them to death. The masked man now had his eyes set on Elena, but before he could strike, she bolted. On the other side, Arkin had broken free and was now smashing a sealed window, trying to escape. That's when Elena came running toward him, but tripped over a corpse in the hallway. The place was littered with bodies. The few still breathing were barely hanging on. That's when the masked man pounced on her from behind. But instead of helping her, Arkin leapt out the window, badly injured but desperate to flee. The masked man let him go and shoved Elena into the red box before disappearing into the night. Arkin was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. One of his arms was shattered. Doctors worked fast, and slowly he began to recover. But everything that had happened, it all felt like a waking nightmare now. Thankfully, his wife never left his side. Through pain, fear, and darkness, she stood by him. In the middle of a tense conversation, Arkin's eyes landed on a bouquet of flowers placed nearby, with a note attached. It read, "Get well soon. I need to see you." The sender, the collection, just hearing that name made Arkin freeze, because somehow, collection had slipped a message right through police surveillance. Without wasting a second, Arkin told his wife to leave for her parents' house. No luggage, no questions, no time. She understood the danger and left immediately. Soon after, another man came to see him, sent by Elena's father. The moment Arkin saw Elena's photo, he recognized her. She was alive. The police were out of options, which is why this mission had been handed to Lucello. He had his own team. All he needed now was the location of the collection. But that was the problem. Arkin didn't know where it was. However, when collection had trapped him inside that red box and transported him to the hotel, Arkin had counted every turn the vehicle took, and he'd carved each direction into his own hands. Using those marks, they could trace the path. Arkin agreed to lead them there, on one condition: he wouldn't set foot inside that place. Because that man, that monster, wasn't just a killer, he was a nightmare. Anyone who fell into his trap would beg for death. This mission had to be flawless. Lucello didn't object to Arkin staying outside. Years ago, Lucello had saved both Elena and her father from a deadly car crash, and ever since, he'd been a part of their family. Elena was like a daughter to him, and somewhere, locked away inside that nightmare, Elena was clinging to one hope, that Lucello would come for her again. And she was absolutely right. From the small hole in her box, she saw something, someone, a man sobbing, begging for his life. But Collection didn't care. He injected him with a horrifying sedative. Then calmly, he began slicing, harvesting, preserving, turning his victims into grotesque trophies. Elena watched in terror. It felt like a living nightmare. She had to escape, no matter what. Using nothing but her t-shirt, she struggled and fought until she finally managed to unlock the box. Meanwhile, Lucello's team had arrived. In front of them stood an old abandoned hotel, shut down for years. It had to be the place. Arkin's job was done, but Lucello wasn't letting him off that easy. At gunpoint, they forced him to the door because he had two things they needed. First, he'd already been locked up inside, and second, he could pick almost any lock with a pin. There were 4 lockers. Arkin began unlocking them, one by one. Meanwhile, Elena had found another box. Inside it, the dead body of a man. Just then, Collection returned, but Elena had already slipped away. Furious, he grabbed a handful of venomous spiders from his collection and released them onto the floor. Elena was hiding just behind one of the display boxes. Slowly, the spiders began crawling across her face. Before she could even scream, an alarm blared. Security breach. Lucello's team had just entered the building. They left one man outside for surveillance. Everyone else was already inside. Collection instantly locked the room and began watching them through CCTV. Elena, however, was trapped in that same room. That's when she spotted a way out, a small vent in the wall. She smashed through it and crawled inside, not knowing where it would lead. Back with Lucello, things were already getting messy. He was using Arkin as bait, and Arkin, by helping them, had now put himself right back in danger. Outside, the one teammate left for watch was dead. Collection took him out in seconds. Inside, the rest of the team had no idea. The floor was littered with syringes, hundreds of them. Something was seriously wrong, and then it showed up. A woman, completely drugged out, lunged at them like a zombie. They barely had time to react. She was shot dead instantly. But what lay ahead was far more terrifying. How could someone be this merciless? It wasn't just 1 or 2. There were dozens of people, turned into animals by some kind of twisted drug. Lucello's team tried everything they could to stop them, but the situation spiraled out of control. In the end, they had no choice but to run for their lives. Getting out wasn't possible, and calling the cops? Useless. A jammer was active across the entire area. Some hoped the gunfire might have been heard outside. That help could be on the way. But the reality was far worse. They were nearly 10 feet underground. No matter how loud they screamed, nothing would reach the surface, which meant no help was coming. They were on their own. Meanwhile, Elena made her way through that secret passage and entered a room with yet another box. Inside it was a terrified girl. The moment she heard Elena's voice, she screamed for help. Elena quickly calmed her down and got her out. Her name was Abby. She was scared out of her mind. Elena assured her they'd get out of this alive. But the real question was, where did they go? There was no clear path. Back with Lucello's team, they came across a young boy. But the second they got close, everything turned upside down. A grenade was strapped to the back of his neck. It exploded instantly. At that same moment, steel spikes dropped from the ceiling and impaled one of the officers. Every step in that place was a death trap. The blast, the screams, the brutal death. It left everyone frozen in shock. And in that silence, Arkin slipped away, right under their noses. And once again, he came face to face with the collection. But just like before, he vanished before Arkin could react. Meanwhile, Elena uncovered a disturbing truth about Abby. Abby believed, somehow, that Collection liked her. Whether it was madness or the aftermath of trauma, no one could say. Suddenly, Abby started yelling, loud, and sure enough, Collection came storming in. Elena ran, as fast as she could. Abby? She stayed there, frozen in fear. But strangely, Collection didn't touch her. His eyes were locked on Elena, and he went after her. Elena sprinted with everything she had. When she couldn't find a way out, she climbed up into a pipeline and hid. One wrong move could get her killed. Meanwhile, Arkin was still unlocking doors, searching for the right way. That's when he found a strange one. No lock, just a knife stabbed through the handle. Right beyond it was death, a brutal trap he barely avoided. Suddenly, footsteps. Arkin jumped into a nearby dumbwaiter to hide. It worked at first, but then his grip slipped. He fell straight down onto a pile of corpses. The floor below, even worse. Cages filled with people who barely looked human anymore. Arkin took it all in and ran, fast. He reached a room that could shake anyone to their core. This was the heart of the collection, his prized, grotesque museum, built from human agony. And right there, Arkin saw a girl, barely alive, broken. Just as he moved to help her, Collection showed up, and without a second's hesitation, he killed her, then calmly locked the door behind him and left. Arkin was now trapped in that horror room, but he wasn't done yet. Using a piece of wire, he picked the lock and broke out again. Meanwhile, Elena spotted something beyond an exhaust fan, two people outside standing near a fire. She screamed, poured every ounce of strength into calling out, but her voice didn't carry. Back inside, Lucello's team found Arkin. One of them knocked him to the floor. Lying there, barely conscious, Arkin looked up, just in time to see Collection lowering a massive hook from the ceiling. And in a flash, he snagged one of Lucello's men and hoisted him into the air. Then, swinging like a phantom on that rope, Collection descended right into the heart of the chaos. War had broken out, but the Collector was overpowering everyone. No one could lay a finger on him. One by one, Lucello's men were killed, and Kat, she was taken captive. And just like that, the Collector vanished into thin air. Lucello was shattered by the death of his teammates. Arkin spoke coldly. "If you want to stay alive, hand me the revolver and do exactly as I say, or we'll end up hanging on these walls like the others." But Lucello refused to leave Elena behind, no matter what. That's when Abby showed up. She knew where Elena was. The three of them followed her. A moment later, they heard Kat's screams echoing through the halls. She was desperately calling for help. They rushed in that direction, but as soon as they stepped into the corridor, the door slammed shut behind them. Inside, the cries continued to echo, so they pushed forward. What they saw next was a trap. Hundreds of mannequins filled the room. Kat, in reality, was far away in another part of the hotel, with a mic placed in front of her. Her cries were being broadcast through speakers hidden inside one of the mannequins. And inside that mannequin was a bomb. Arkin spotted the wire just in time. His instincts kicked in and he warned the others. The very next second, boom! One by one, the mannequin heads started exploding. The blasts were so intense, the walls shook. Somehow, Lucello dodged the grenade explosions and made it out. Meanwhile, Elena had found and freed Kat. She had to get out, at any cost. Soon, they all reunited on the second floor. Seeing Elena alive brought a flood of relief to Lucello. Just then, Arkin noticed two guys warming themselves by a fire outside. His mind clicked. He grabbed Lucello's revolver and shot one of them. The intention was clear. The other one would now definitely alert the police. And that's exactly what happened. Within minutes, sirens echoed as police and ambulances swarmed outside the hotel. The Collector lost it. His rage hit the ceiling. Arkin fired another shot toward the police vehicle to make sure they knew where the gunfire was coming from. Backup was surely on the way. The SWAT team would storm in any moment now. All they had to do was hold tight. But then, Abby snapped. She locked the room and said, "The Collector loves me." Then, looking directly into the surveillance camera, she screamed, "Come quick! I've trapped them all!" That's when Kat lost it. She punched Abby hard. Abby stumbled straight into one of the traps. She didn't even get a full second to scream before it killed her on the spot. Just then, the Collector returned with his vicious hounds and unleashed hell. Bullets rained down. One of the dogs lunged straight for Arkin's injured arm, still in a cast. Arkin fought back and killed the beast, but couldn't stop the Collector. He moved like a ghost and disappeared with Elena. Meanwhile, Lucello had accidentally triggered a deadly trap. Razor-sharp metal spikes now hovered above his head. One move, and he was dead. He told Arkin and Kat to go save Elena. Outside, the SWAT team had taken their positions. After a tense search, they finally found Elena. She was tied to a table, mouth taped shut. Without hesitation, Arkin and Kat rushed to free her, but it was another trap. A metal cage sealed them in, impossible to break. The room was filled with flammable chemicals. The Collector returned, lit a fire, and walked away. Kat tried to pry open the door with a knife, but it was useless. That's when Arkin made a desperate move. He started smashing his cast against the bars. Once it broke off, he told Elena to break his arm. No time to think. She did it, and Arkin, through sheer willpower, managed to break open the cage. While the collector was busy wiping away every trace of evidence, the three of them escaped down the stairs. And then, a massive explosion shook the entire place. Running for their lives, they stumbled into the heart of the collector's lair, his most twisted and prized collection. Surveillance cameras were everywhere, and in the very next second, the collector struck. He came down on them like a storm, and within moments, he wiped all three out. Kat died on the spot. Now it was Elena and Arkin's turn, but just before the collector could finish them off, Lucello arrived. He'd managed to jam the dog's corpse into a trap and escape. Without wasting a second, he launched himself at the collector. A brutal fight broke out between the two. Fists, blades, blood. But in the end, Lucello was killed. That's when Arkin saw his shot. He charged at the collector, unleashing all his rage, beat him to a pulp, and then set him on fire. Just as flames engulfed the monster, the police finally broke through the door. When the smoke cleared, only Elena and Arkin had survived. Inside the hotel, police recovered tons of evidence, including the collector's mask. But that raised a question. Did he really die? Or had he pulled off one last trick? Weeks passed. Somewhere, a man was seen obsessively curating a bizarre collection of bugs in his home. One night, something strange happened. He heard a noise, and when he went to check, he found a red box sitting there. The same red box. And then, out of nowhere, a gun was pressed to his head. It was Arkin. After everything he went through, he had uncovered the truth. He didn't want to kill the collector. He wanted revenge. That red box was now his prison. Arkin was about to do to him everything that had once been done to him.